Happy quarantine, everyone. I know these are weird times, but I hope everyone is at least in an okay state. Though we are in a strange time, the spring season has brought us two more baseball anime. If you follow my channel regularly, I tried to do this thing last year where I made one podcast for every baseball anime in the spring last year, which turned out to be 3 podcasts, which was maybe too many podcasts. So I've decided to take the 2 shows airing this spring and combine them into one podcast that I hope will be updating weekly. Because what else do I really have to do? The 2 shows airing this spring are the first season of Tamayomi and the second season of Major Second. Tamayomi airing Wednesdays on Funimation and Major Second airing Saturdays on Crunchyroll. Both first episodes are already out, and I think this would be a good time to talk about them. We'll start with Tamayomi, going in chronological order. And the thing you have to understand going into Tamayomi is that this is a generic cute girls doing things anime. There is not much more going for it than that. If these cute girls were doing literally anything other than playing baseball, I probably would have dropped this show 30 seconds in. Needless to say, most people are not going to find it that good, but I am going to stick with it because it's kind of my job and also because I didn't hate this episode. The name Tamayomi is a portmanteau of the 2 main characters. We have our catcher Tamaki and our pitcher Yomi, who are both childhood friends that never really played baseball in an organized fashion until they meet up right now in high school. They rekindle their friendship and they join on the baseball field along with 2 other baseball fans. And they all discover that Yomi has been hiding this sort of like secret breaking ball magic pitch that looks to make her a pretty solid pitcher. There are a whole lot of flashbacks of Yomi in middle school unable to unleash the power of her pitch because her catcher couldn't handle it and didn't want to look bad doing it. In a sense, this show starts very similarly to Ofuri, in which we have this high-powered pitcher unable to do what they're able to do because they were socially ostracized in middle school. The only difference is Ofuri was this like really good and gentle television show about kids being nice kids. And this show is kind of an excuse to put high school girls in tight clothing and show off their thighs. Story-wise, that's all you need to know about it. And if you follow sports or baseball anime as closely as I do, the question that you may be asking after watching the first episode of this series is, what's the difference between this and Cinderella 9? Cinderella 9 was a show that came out in the spring of 2019, and honestly, there isn't much of a difference. In Tamayomi, the characters have a more natural design. The hair designs and the body designs are also more normal. The colors aren't as saturated, the action is more fluid, the animation is crisper, but I hesitate to call it good. And I think one key difference that we're going to appreciate as the series goes on is that the baseball is already established. What I mean by that is that this club already has a field and equipment and players that are built in, whereas Cinderella 9 had to spend a few episodes building a club and a field and a reason to play. This might get the action going a bit earlier and it might give this show a better pace. But I'm honestly not expecting all that much from it. Unless you're going into the series looking for cute girls doing sports things and not much else, don't bother watching this show. And even if that kind of thing is your jam, go into the show understanding that the animation is not great and the voice acting is not great and the story is pretty cliched. But you never know, maybe it can pick up after a pretty decent to bad first episode. Now, that was Tamayomi, and I imagine I'm going to be spending much more of my time throughout the weeks talking about Major Second. I recently did a video reviewing the first season of Major Second. That video was taken down a couple weeks after I released it for copyright infringement, which, considering the proximity of the next season's airing, I completely understand. But if you weren't able to watch that video, the gist that I wanted to present from that video was that the first season of Major Second is a lot better than any of the seasons from the original Major series. I still had my issues with the first season that were very much related to issues that I had with Major, but it seemed as if it had done a lot of growing up in the time that it had not aired. I was pretty surprised that I enjoyed any bit of anything related to Major, but I would have given the first season of Major Second a pretty solid 7 out of 10. And this show is still surprising me because after the first episode of the second season of Major Second, this could quite easily become one of my favorite shows of all time. The first couple of seconds show that the colors are so much better, the movement is so much crisper, the character design just, everything looks so much better than the first season. And beyond the animation looking better, the storyline looks like it's going to get better as well. When we head in, we seem to have time skipped a year, where the end of Major Second had Daigo and Sakura graduating from elementary school. The beginning of the second season has them in their second year of middle school. Sakura seems to have been elected the vice captain of their baseball team, and Daigo seems to have been elected the captain of their baseball team. And on the first day of school, they have the unenviable task of inviting 4 new recruits. These recruits have been given athletic scholarships by the school to join the team, and as a result, they have this sort of cocky, standoffish personality. But these cocky players are not cocky for the sake of being cocky. The show establishes them as talented baseball players. And when Sakura and some of the other players demand respect from these players, the main one, Akira, responds by saying, when you're on a baseball field, the senpai-kohai dynamic doesn't really make sense. They're not going to give respect because upperclassmen deserve respect. They're going to give respect based on talent and production. And so Daigo, being the pragmatist that he is, decides not necessarily to give in to their whims, but asks them to demonstrate their abilities by playing a sandlot game. The first year boys impress immediately with their skills, but then Daigo and Sakura as a battery demonstrate why their experience in elementary school doesn't necessarily hold up to the middle school game. They struggle with things like breaking balls and the feel of the ball itself, and Daigo and company eventually demonstrate that despite not being as physically gifted as the newcomers, their experience is what gives them their role on the team. One thing I should mention about the team as it's presently constructed, it's mostly girls, and that's pretty shocking. As far as I know, middle school baseball in Japan allows for co-ed teams, but you don't really see this in anime too often, or if you do, there's like a token girl. But like half of this team is made of girls. And not just like anime girls in the way that like sports anime will put 10 carbon copies of girls to be managers or cheerleaders or something. The 4 girls that we meet so far all have different faces and different body types and different voices and different personalities. They're all very unique characters. We already know Sakura, who's established herself as right now the de facto ace pitcher of the team. We have Yayoi, who is a blonde girl who can hit really well and plays first base. We have Dao, who is a shortstop who I thought was a boy at first, but just has like short hair and a deep voice, but is actually a girl. Major is no longer amongst that pantheon of shows that establishes one female baseball playing character for the token aspect of it. Major might actually be doing girls baseball a service, and that is not something I expected out of this show at all. The animation quality is also demonstrated in the action scenes, which, again, are so much better than the first season. They are fluid, they are crisp, they hype me up just as much as anything from Ace of Diamond would, and for the first time watching a major series, I'm actually excited to watch the games themselves. With strong female characters, with antagonists with a clear motivation, with a very strong pace already going for this show, I think this might easily be my favorite show of the season. And if it continues in this direction, it's going to leapfrog a whole lot of baseball shows in my top 10 list. If there's anything I might suggest as a problem with this show, I do worry a little bit that Daigo might become too perfect of a character. One of the reasons I liked the first season of Major Second so much was that it showed Daigo as this very flawed character that had to put in a lot of work to overcome his flaws and become a more complete human being. And we're only a couple years after the end of that show, but there isn't anything so far to suggest that Daigo has anything to overcome at the moment. He's very talented, he's very well established, he commands a lot of respect, and I kind of worry we might get that perfect superhero character that his dad was in the middle of Major. The other thing that's also kind of weird, the sexualization of the middle school characters in this show has already started. It took about 12 episodes for the sexualization to come into place in the first season of Major Second, but it only took 10 minutes for it to happen in the second season, and it's not during any of the action, it's during the bump where we see a picture of Daigo and he's lying very seductively and his baseball belt is undone and it focuses your eyes directly on his 13-year-old waist, and it's weird. But I guess it's equal opportunity fan service considering the really sexualized ED from the second part of the previous season. But those are very small complaints. The first episode of this show was really, really good. It might be the best baseball show I've seen since Battery? Yeah, Battery sounds about right. I am super excited to see where this show goes, and I sincerely hope the global pandemic will not affect the quality of the show, though I will understand if it does and will put it into perspective and not be disappointed. And I sincerely hope that these two shows are going to carry you and I throughout this season where we are stuck inside and won't have much to do besides watch things like this. Anyway, go watch Tamayomi on Funimation if you think you'll like it. And even if you have your reservations about Major like I did, go watch Major Second on Crunchyroll. Highly recommended. Cannot wait for next week.